on all my gamers, all my Zenless Zone Zero gamers. So, with 1.6 coming out, of course, there is a new main story, and with that, you know what that means, chat. I'm going to come on here, I'm going to talk about the story. You know me, I love reviewing these stories. These are kind of what I play, this is what we play gacha games for, is these stories. So, with 1.6, we get a new intermission story, which is not, going to move along the main story, but you're going to get, a lot of backstory with some of the characters. And with this story in 1.6, it actually revolves around Lycan and Hugo. Hugo was actually introduced in the Bang Boo Dress to Impress event, with that one event. I think it had the Bang Boo Fall Guys, which I love that event. I don't know about you guys. I think we need more games like that. I love those events. Those events are really funny. But the two new characters that were introduced, of course, like I said, Hugo, we get more of him, and the new character, like brand new, wasn't in it before, is Vivian. Vivian is a fan favorite, and one of my favorites, that's for sure. So Hugo is a more troubled character, especially with the characters that we're used to in ZZZ. But I think that's kind of the big thing this patch, with characters like Anby, Prime, and Trigger. We have a little bit more of a dark story, and Hugo is no different. He actually has a very traumatic, dark backstory that is introduced and explained in this, and shown sometimes in pretty graphic details. That's very, very, for sure. He's a calculating character. He's pretty suspicious. You're wondering, what is he doing? What's on his mind the whole time? Because he's always got he always plays like he's one step ahead, and at one point he even comes in, and this is where the story kind of takes a turn, is where he comes into this auction that you're invited to, steals this jacket, which the jacket has a gem on it, which is used for something for sacrifices. It's supposed to be the core of a sacrifice. He comes in, he takes it, and that's when his character takes a turn. And yeah, I liked him. I like Hugo. I thought he was a pretty cool character. And the next character that they introduced was Vivian. First off, Vivian was a lot more mysterious in a way. She was very calm. She was following you. She knows a lot about you, and it's a little weird at first. And you learn that she has this certain power with this one turn in the story that is kind of dark. Or I wouldn't even say dark. It was very sad. And you learn that when Vivian looks at you, she has the power to tell if your life is about to end, or if something tragic is about to happen to you. And her visions of the future are always absolute, and is shown in a way where if she looks at you and it happens, she's gonna cry because of the overwhelming emotions that she feels in that. And this character in the latter half, I will say this. I don't like saying this because, the funny implications of this meme, but in a way, she kind of does get reduced to waifu bait in kind of a way. She becomes your waifu, that's for sure. She learns that you're Faithin, and man, she has a field day. She loves you. She loves Faithin. She has Faithin merch that she made herself because you don't have any merch. She made it herself, and some of this includes some of your tweets, or I don't know what it is. She laminates it, puts it on photo cards. So in a way, I know I could see this being a little too much for some people, and I would completely understand, because at certain points it kind of got a little bit much for me as well. But she's just such a cute character, especially when she finds out that you're Faithin. I kind of let it slide, but I just want to be fair and be like, hey, we talk about gathering wives, so we kind of have to talk about it here in ZZZ. I like being fair, chat. I like being fair across the board, so it is kind of it throws you off a little bit. I will say that. So, I don't know. You probably like it. I know a lot of my chat was a huge fan of Vivian. Me too. But let's move on to Lycan's new VA. With this, I've already talked about Lycan's VA. We talked about his situation. I just want to talk about how Lycan's new VA does. And to be completely honest, I think he did great. I think he did a very serviceable job. He nails Lycan's likeness the way you're expected of him. His calm demeanor, sophisticated, and even later on when he has to be more angry and he has to, there's a rage moment in there for Lycan. It sounds pretty good. My only problem is I feel like there is a technical problem with his recording. I feel like you can kind of hear the reverberations of him being inside a booth. Like you can hear that he's inside of a booth. I'm kind of letting it slide because I don't think this will bother a lot of people. This is bothering me because, I know about audio and stuff, so I can kind of hear it. And to me, it bothers me. But if it doesn't bother you, don't even worry about it. It's not really a big deal. I'm explaining this is I think it's because they had to rush him, I would assume. So he probably had to get in a booth and they probably couldn't. I don't know. I'm letting it slide for this patch because he kind of got rushed into the role. But other than that, did a great job. I liked him. Good stuff. Now, this is something that I know because it is a gacha game. This is going to happen. I can't let it slide because I didn't let it slide in Wuthering Waves. But, Anby gets brought into the story in a way that I feel like it's just to sell her character. Anby comes in as Anby Prime, not regular Anby, with Trigger. They both help you in one part of the story, and in fact, Anby is kind of tagging along for the later half of the story. But she comes in her prime state, which until you do where to find this story, right? It's in her character story. Someone in my chat even told me that I should stop at a certain point and just go do Anby's story. I don't really like that. I would have preferred if they brought her in as regular Anby, because this just feels like it's inserted to sell the character. Which, I mean, it's a gacha game. Sure, I get it. And you know how ZZZ does. They really like to let you try these characters during the main story. So you get to try her. You even get to try Trigger. Trigger is actually playable in this story for like one part, but she plays really well with Anby Prime. I like the way these two synergize off each other. It feels really cool, but I didn't let it go with Carlotta. I can't really let it go for this character because then, I want to be fair. So in my opinion, I feel like they should have just had regular Anby and let you go discover more about Anby Prime in her character story instead of kind of shoehorning it into this. Like if Anby is going to be like Anby Prime for the rest of the story from the foreseeable future, sure. But even then, they should have just left it in her character story. Then the next patch, they bring in Anby Prime. That's just a me thing because I don't really like a lot of off-screen things. Like Carlotta had that in her story where she breaks free, is what I've been told. It's been mentioned in her story. I don't really like it if it's not in the main story. It's kind of weird for me, but hey, some people are gonna like it. I liked playing her, so that's just kind of my biggest gripe with this story. But moving on, let's talk about the tone shift in this story. Now, in the beginning of the story, it actually feels like a regular ZZZ story. So it's really silly. You have some wacky characters. Stuff is going to get, a little silly. Nothing's going to be too serious. But then at a certain point, I think it's during the Anby Prime part, where there's a very tragic scene with one of the characters you're introduced to is a mother. She ends up passing away on screen. So it's, you hear her reasons and it's very sad, and it doesn't get better from there. Oh, I mean, the story gets better, but the tone doesn't get better from there, especially with Hugo being told about his backstory and, the event of the thing that broke Hugo, where he became a little bit more bloodthirsty and a little bit more how do I say this, a little bit more okay with taking a life. You get to see it. In fact, you actually get to see it in some graphic details. That's for sure. You see him, the aftermath of what he did to his family, of some of the bodies there. So they went a little bit more adult with this story. That's for sure. That's the way that I'm gonna say it. But you learn a little bit more about Lycan. You learn a little bit more about Hugo in the latter half, and what drove Hugo to break and to become a little bit more, willing to take a life. Even still, I do like their dynamic of Hugo and Lycan. You can kind of see why they were good friends, and you see that in their interactions. Some of my favorite interactions actually is with Ambi Prime, when she becomes part of your team to go and investigate the sacrifice crystal, and where like one of the sacrifices is. Ambi kind of comes in, and in her very monotone way is just like telling them, hey, get it together or get the hell out of here. It's really funny. It's some funny interactions, and Ambi's just like telling them how it is, and just be like, so do you guys just fighting just for fun, because we're kind of doing something here. It's really funny, you guys. It's a very funny moment. I love Ambi and Ambi Prime. Even in her prime state, doesn't change her character. Still very monotone. Love it. I'm all about it. And then the story ends off. Actually, it ends off, and in the middle of it, there is a Hugo boss fight. The first time you fight Hugo, you have to do it alone with Lycan, because Lycan is the only person with you running through the hollow. It does take a bit, because you have to use Lycan, and Lycan's not really a DPS. He's a whatever the character, a stun character. But the second time you fight him as Ambi Prime and Lycan, and that one flows a lot better. And I like his boss fight. I'm actually a big fan of the boss fight, because he has some unique like mechanics that is exclusive to him, and it feels really cool. I think he can parry you or something, and there's a point where he slows you down and you have to parry him. It's really cool. It's a really sick boss fight. I enjoyed it. Hugo is a cool boss. I like it. And then in the end, which I was very, very surprised. This story has a very dramatic ending. Spoiler alert, by the way. But if you're watching this, there's spoilers. Hugo, you actually get to see when Lycan pierces Hugo after Hugo takes you hostage. I was very surprised by that. I had a surprised look on my face, because I was not expecting them to show it. And in fact, Lycan, it says in detail that he pierces his heart. I thought that was sick. So this is definitely not a regular Zenless Zone Zero story, except for, with Vivian. Vivian kind of keeps it all together, but even still, this was a more darker and more, I think just darker. I was gonna say depressing, but I don't really think it was that depressing. There was a sad moment, but it was just a lot darker. It was a darker Zenless Zone Zero story. I like this direction, especially because you get to learn about Lycan and Hugo, future characters. You get to see Vivian. You get to do all this stuff. I liked it. I really liked it, chat. If I had to guess, it flowed very well despite being 3.5 hours. So it wasn't overly long, but there is a moment where it gets a little bit yappy, but that was like, I think, a third of the way through. So that's probably the only part. If I had to rate this, I think I would give it a 7 out of 10. The only thing about the 8, the only thing keeping it out of being an 8 is the Ambi Prime shoehorn. Even still, like a 7, like a low 8, high 7. It's a very good story. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Comment, like, subscribe, and I will catch you gamers in the next one. Bye.